Welcome back to the Gridiron Address. This is Mock Draft 2.0 post combine and also before free agency. Obviously, start next week, a lot of things are going to change. I think second mock and third mock are going to look drastically different after we see where all these marquee free agents go. I know a lot of wide receiver needy teams like Pittsburgh and Chargers they've got to be frothing at the mouth with how good this market is for wide receivers. A lot of big names on the market, but let's just go ahead. Actually, no. Myles Garrett, massive extension signed the other day. 40 million a year, 120 something guaranteed. Chris, before we hop into the mock draft, let's get your thoughts on this.
I think it was weird. I mean, especially with him asking out with the trade and then just kind of backing down on that. I mean, we were talking about it before the show. Jason and I were talking about that, and we all were, about how they kind of need draft capital. And my big point with that is that they're not really competitive. And the best thing they could have done was trade Garrett to get more draft picks to be able to draft franchise quarterback, which, they've been looking for since they came back as the new Browns, draft more defensive players, offensive line, pretty much everything that they need, yet they just went ahead and were content with re-signing Myles Garrett long-term. And while he's a great player, he's phenomenal, it's big for the Browns, he's not going to be competing anytime soon because that team will not be competing anytime soon.
And Jason, what are your thoughts on that Garrett extension?
A couple of different things. Just, again, Browns doing Browns things, signing a massive contract for Myles Garrett, just, hamstringing them into, what capital are you going to have you got so many other pieces to fill. And the other big thing was, this just reset the market again. You thought, the Max Crosby deal reset the market. Then all of a sudden, Myles Garrett, what does this say for Micah Parsons when he sits down at the table? If Myles Garrett can get $40 million a year, I think that just means, Parsons going to get that $40 to $45 million a year guaranteed money. So, and $123.5 million guaranteed, that's a lot of money. So, great job, Mr. Garrett, getting that bag, but you're still in Cleveland. You're still on a subpar team, and you're just kind of wasting your talents. But I'm interested to see the Micah Parsons deal now. So I think this is going to change a lot for him.
I think after that extension for Myles Garrett, Micah Parsons could end up being the highest paid non-quarterback. In all honesty, I think he's younger, so he's gonna warrant a bigger deal than Myles Garrett.
45-50 million a year at least.
Easy, and that is just insane. But let's jump right into the mock draft. Titans at first overall. To me, it feels like they can't go wrong. They can go after I don't like throwing around the term generational for prospects because it happens way too much. Abdul Carter's just about that. You got him. You got Cam Ward. They desperately need a quarterback, or they can trade down because they clearly need a lot of help. But, Jason, what do you have the Titans doing at first overall?
Man, another one of those teams that needs a lot. I did this, and I got all kinds of notes in front of me, but I'm doing this without trading, because when you start thinking about trades and stuff, your brain goes crazy. So I think they take Cam Ward. I think a lot of the other stuff is just kind of smoke screens. So they need to start at the head. They need a quarterback that can get the job done. Will Levis, the mayonnaise king, is not it. So I got them going Cam Ward, taking that quarterback. That's what they need. I think he's the best quarterback in this class right now. A lot of other guys are kind of getting fluffed up and hyped up, especially after the combine. But when it's all said and done, I think Cam Ward, laying all the cards on the table, I think he's probably the best NFL-ready quarterback in this draft.
And Chris, I have them going Abdul Carter. I think when you have a prospect that is that good at number one, it's just hard to pass on him. You push that quarterback ball down the road till 2026, and for a class that as of right now, is supposed to be better than this year. Obviously, we will see how this next college football season plays out. I think it's really hard to pass on a player like Abdul Carter. But Chris, what do you have the Titans doing at the top of the draft?
I mean, I think that they should go for Abdul Carter because he's objectively the best player in the draft overall, but I don't think that they're going to be going defensive minded really right now. I have to agree with Jason that they're probably going to be going quarterback. If I was to pick what I think they should do, I think they should trade back, which I mean, we've heard about that. A team that if I was Chicago, I'd be calling, because out of the teams that were not exactly great last year, you're probably in one of the better positions to compete. So Chicago trading up, trying to go for a guy like Abdul Carter would be really smart. But I'm going to go, just for the sake of the argument, I'm just going to go Cam Ward because that's probably what they're going to do.
Yeah, the Titans are a team that trade down. To me, would probably be the right move. I don't think they do it, but I digress. And we were just talking about the Browns a second ago. They're up at number 2, obviously. An absolute mess of a franchise. They just paid Myles Garrett an obscene amount of money. They have the elephant in the room that is Deshaun Watson and his hundreds of millions in guaranteed money. This, for me, it's a mess. That Deshaun Watson deal set Cleveland back a decade, easy. With the cap space, the picks they gave up, it's really hard to say what they're going to do because, much like the Titans, they need a lot. I have them going Travis Hunter, get a guy who's going to bring some energy and excitement to that team. And Cleveland feels like a team that might actually give them a chance to play both sides of the ball because they are just that desperate for both a playmaker and somebody to just bring some type of excitement to that franchise. Chris, what do you have the Browns doing at second overall?
I mean, they kind of just need everything, to be honest with you. There's not much really can be said, but they've made it incredibly clear that they're still trying to stick with Deshaun Watson, even if he's not going to play for the whole year or at least a portion of it. So I think that they're actually going to go do something weird here. I have them going for Will Campbell. I have them going an offensive tackle. The offensive line was atrocious. So I have them going with an offensive lineman second overall.
Wow.
And then because that's my main argument, is they've made it clear that they still want to stick with Watson for whatever reason. So
Jason, what do you have Cleveland doing at second overall?
Well, now they just signed Myles Garrett. You talk about a scary defense. And, of course, I picked Cam Ward number 1. So you go Abdul Carter number 2. So talk about a defense with Myles Garrett and Abdul Carter on that line. Woo! Cleveland, they may not be able to score any points, but I think that defense will be able to stop a lot of teams. So I'm going to do Abdul Carter number 2, man. I think defense is, I think, Cleveland's MO right now. Their offense is probably going to be that just manage the game kind of offense. I still hear some things in the winds that, they may do some trading. I know, Morton out of New England, might come over. So, but yeah, you put Abdul Carter next to Myles Garrett. I wouldn't want to face that defense.
That is, without a doubt, an incredibly terrifying thought. And I mean, hey, I would not hate that pick. For me, I have him gone already. But Jason, up at number 3, it's your New York Giants. And it's got to be a quarterback at 3, right? For me personally, I got Cam Ward here at 3. And like you said earlier, he's the most pro-ready quarterback. And the Giants need that. They cannot afford – they don't have anybody to mentor a young quarterback, so they need a guy who's going to be able to go in there and start early in his career. And for me, that player is Cam Ward. But Jason, what do you have your Giants doing at number 3?
There's so many kind of rumors flying around here looking at the Giants. I know there's the Aaron Rodgers rumor, which I hope to God he does not sign with the New York Giants. I would rather toil with a rookie quarterback for a year than put Aaron Rodgers back there. Giants, another one of those teams that kind of need some big pieces. They do need a quarterback, but this is such a deeper second and third round quarterback draft. I don't think they need to get nervous and balk. I know they love Jackson Dart. I think he had a sleepover with Eli Manning because of the Ole Miss thing. So, I think there's that connection there, but I would hate to see them take use that third pick on Jackson Dart. So I'm going to go Travis Hunter, probably one of the overall best players in the draft. Just a defensive guy. You can use him on offense a little bit too. So I'm going to go Travis Hunter. Take the best guy in the draft at number 3. You have plenty of time to either make a trade and get up into the second round, or maybe pop back into the first round with some of those, later teams. You might be able to kind of squeeze back into that first round again and pick your quarterback. I don't want to. There's no generational quarterback to me in this draft. So I don't think there's anybody worth wasting your draft capital or trying to trade up to get. So Travis Hunter, get the best available. Make a smart decision, New York Giants, please.
I mean, look, maybe the Giants trade up to first overall. Who knows? You were saying where the Giants are going to do giant things. Hopefully not. But Chris, what do you think the Giants are going to do at number 3?
I also think they're going to go best available, and they're a team that needs a lot of things, but I still have Abdul Carter there, and there's no way that man falls out of the top 5. So give me Abdul Carter. While he might not be the biggest team need, he's still objectively the best overall player in the draft, and I'm going to go and say the Giants, he falls to the Giants as of mock draft 2.0.
And up at number 4, it is the New England Patriots, but this is where I have my first trade. I think the Raiders are desperate to get a young guy in there. Geno's just a stopgap quarterback. I got them trading up from 6 to 4 to get the second best quarterback in this draft in Shedeur Sanders. Obviously, he's got that connection with Tom Brady, so that plays into it a little bit. But this is also a good situation to put Shedeur in. I think he will not have pressure to start right away. You can afford to give him a year and a half to sit and learn behind a solid veteran quarterback like a Geno Smith, because Shedeur has a tendency to play hero ball, try to do too much. And I think if he starts early in his career, we're going to see a lot of that and a lot of just rough plays. And I am of the opinion that rookie quarterbacks should not be starting week 1 unless they are absolutely generational. Give them half a season, a year to sit back and learn the system before you throw them into that kind of role. But Chris, what do you have the Patriots doing it for?
I mean, I think it's kind of hard. I think that this would be an ideal trade situation. Again, I think Chicago would be a great team to trade up because they're at number 10 right now, and number 4 would be really good. But because Abdul Carter's off the board, because Will Campbell's off the board, I got to go, and I'm going to say that they probably do go ahead and keep it. And, obviously the big discussion is all those receivers that, New England's supposedly going to get with this cap. Will they or will they not? So since free agency has not started, and this will very likely change after free agency, I'm actually going to go have them going with McMillan out of Arizona here, because assuming that they don't get any of these guys, but first wide receiver off the board, he's considered generational talent when it comes to receiver. So assuming that they don't use any of that cap space, that wouldn't be a bad pick in my opinion.
And Jason, what do you think the Pats are going to do it for?
I like that take that you had with the Raiders trading up. I think they do really want Shedeur Sanders. I think he fits that kind of Raiders mold and mentality. But all things being equal, I think they go, since I don't have him off my board, I think they go Will Campbell. They need to get the best offensive tackle. You got Drake May, a young buck out there. You can get this draft has a pretty deep, I was going through it, it's pretty deep in the wide receiver and running back. Again, this second, third, those later rounds, this is deep, a deep draft for those kind of players. So right now, get the best available, get your best offensive tackle. You need to protect Drake May. If he's going to be your quarterback, you need to get him some help. So I think they go Will Campbell at LSU, number 4.
And up at 5, we got the Jacksonville Jaguars. This was honestly the easiest pick for me so far. They had the worst pass defense in the entire NFL, and that's saying something, honestly. There were some pretty rough defenses this year, so I think it is Will Johnson hands down at 5. Phenomenal playmaking ability. He's got great size at corner. 3 pick sixes in his college career. Phenomenal few seasons at Michigan. This is a insanely obvious pick. I think you could also go Mason Graham as well. You just got to fix that defense. That's got to be priority one. I was tempted by the idea of McMillan here. Liam Cohen wanting to get Trevor Lawrence, another weapon to pair with Brian Thomas Jr., but I would like to think he's going to be smart, see how bad that defense was, make that priority one, get yourself a potential cornerback one, lockdown corner in Will Johnson. Chris, what do you think the Jags do at 5?
Well, I still have a surprise here. I still have the number 2 ranked prospects still on my board. I have Travis Hunter still here at 5, and that's entirely believable because he was very good at one position, and he was pretty good at another. So I'm going to go with Travis Hunter. I'm going to go with 2-way player. I think that would fit in Duval. If he falls, I think they would go with him. But unfortunately for the Raiders, right under them, I have Hunter going 5th overall, Jacksonville.
Jason, what do you think the Jags do at 5th overall in this draft?
That's another one of those teams that just some of the moves they make and some of the things they have done over the past couple of years just kind of make you scratch your head a little bit. I have them kind of doing that same thing here. Look, you spent a lot of money on Trevor Lawrence. So get yourself an offensive tackle, Kelvin Banks Jr. out of Texas. You need someone to block and help Trevor Lawrence stay off the ground. Trevor Lawrence was stacked and pressured, I think, way too much for being as much as they're spending on him. Look, they need a lot of help. They need work running back. They need a whole new defense. But you really need to protect your investment. So I have them going offensive tackle because it's not the stupid obvious pick, because the Jacksonville Jaguars don't do anything stupid and obvious. They just do stupid. So I got them doing offensive tackle out of Texas, Kelvin Banks Jr. Protect Trevor Lawrence.
Drew Coates saying Travis falling to 5 would be a shock.
Yeah,
I agree with you. I think he goes to Cleveland. That it really feels like a Cleveland pick. They're desperate enough to give him snaps on both sides of the ball. But up at 6, I have the Patriots. It's actually the Raiders, but obviously I had that trade up for the Raiders. I've got the Patriots here going Will Campbell. You got to protect Drake May. We've seen these past few years rookie quarterbacks playing behind terrible offensive lines. And even C.J. Stroud this year in his second season, offensive line regressed massively, and we saw him have a sophomore slump as a result of that. For me, Will Campbell's the best tackle in this draft. Feels like a pretty easy pick. I think they will get some receivers in free agency, so that's why I have them going offensive line. But, Jason, what do you think the Raiders will do at 6?
Well, I still have Shedeur on my board, so Shedeur Sanders, the sexy pick. He's going to sell some jerseys. You're going to have Dion in the building, the Colorado connection kind of deal. So I have him going there. They need to train a new quarterback. I mean, Geno Smith is kind of that short-term, maybe 2 years type quarterback. So you need somebody waiting in the wings and learn, especially behind Pete Carroll. I think that's going to be good for him to carry a clipboard and sit there and learn something for the first couple of years and really study, because he has that talent. He's just not polished. He still needs help with some of his footwork and some of his decision making. So I got Sanders going to the Raiders.
And Chris, what do you think Vegas is going to do at 6 here?
I mean, a big issue for them for years, even when they were still a consistent on and off consistent wildcard team, was defense in general, whether if that was the pass rush or whether if that was in the secondary, especially the secondary. But with that being said, I'm going to go with Mason Graham here. I think a pass rusher like him, an elite pass rusher like him, going to a team like the Raiders would be really good. I mean, I was pretty close between him and Will Johnson, but I think they're going to go address the line first. I mean, you kind of got to address both, and I think they're going to give Geno a year and then evaluate next year based on their performance of who they would want to replace him. So I think Geno still has another 2-3 good years left in him. I I personally believe he's a top 10 quarterback in the NFL. A lot of people won't. I think he's accurate. He doesn't turn the ball over. He makes good decisions. And while there may be younger, more flashier quarterbacks that are better than him, at least but how the media views it, I think Geno is a solid stone, a good edge stone right there. I mean, I think give him 2 years. It gives you 2 years to go draft a quarterback later on.
And at 7, we got the New York Jets, brought in Lions defensive coordinator Aaron Glenn. It's a mess for the Jets. They need a quarterback. They need offensive line. They need a wide receiver. I think they're going to go offensive line. I think Aaron Glenn, coming from Detroit, and how much they stressed getting the trenches right, I think they're going to go offensive tackle here. And for me, second best offensive tackle has got to be Armand Membo out of Missouri. He had a phenomenal combine. He held up amazing against some really tough pass rushers in the SEC. And there's been some talk about pushing him inside. But if you watch him, he didn't do too great against bigger pass rushers. So you don't want to kick the guy inside the guard and make his weaknesses more apparent. I think you go Membo, get that offensive line right, and hopefully bring in a veteran that can give you a year or two, like a Geno Smith type or something. I really don't know. The Jets are an absolute mess right now. They shouldn't have brought in Aaron Rodgers, shouldn't have brought in Devontae. Terrible moves from them. But Chris, what do you think the Jets are going to do at 7?
I mean, I'm going to go have them jet because the Jets are going to jet, and I have them falling one more pick than Jason had them. I have them going Shedeur Sanders. I think that they're going to look at him and they're going to say quarterback, but who's going to be their starter? Look, Sam Darnold doesn't want to come back there. I think Sam Darnold, he saw ghosts there. He saw ghosts at MetLife Stadium, as many people do, especially for the Jets. And I think they're going to go look, and they're going to go look at this unpolished but high quality talent of a quarterback, and they're just going to go with him. Because while that objectively going quarterback is not very smart, there are so many other players you should go, whether Will Johnson, Membo, Stewart, Kevin Banks Jr., so many other things you need to address. They're going to go quarterback. It would not surprise me just because it's the Jets.
Jason, what do you think they're going to do? Obviously, playing in the same stadium as your Giants.
Yeah. Another hot mess of a team. Again, some of the decisions they make, it makes you scratch your head. As a fantasy football savant, I think the New York Jets, because I still have them on the board, are going to take McMillan, wide receiver, out of Arizona. He's an unbelievable player. He's going to be unbelievable talent. And that's the one team nobody really wants to see him go to because it's the New York Jets, but I see Jets doing Jets things. So I think they go wide receiver, Tetohura McMillan. I think they get that wide receiver. It just makes you scratch your head, but that's the things the Jets do. I think they're going to get a quarterback at some point in time, but I think they'll get one in the later rounds. They need help on that offensive line. They need help on that defensive line. So they need help everywhere, but I think they go get themselves a stud wide receiver. Unfortunately, just they don't have anybody to throw him the football.
And Garrett Wilson has still played at an elite level with subpar quarterback play, so that's something to keep into account too.
Exactly. So, yeah, I got McMillan going to the Jets.
And next up at 8, we got my Carolina Panthers, and he's still available on my board, and I've been saying this for months now. It's Mason Graham at 8. That run defense was absolutely atrocious, and that is what Mason Graham excels in. He's going to come in, pair him with Derek Brown, and it is going to be a formidable front to stop the run. And there's a couple other defensive guys that I just got to shout out. I think Jalon Walker out of Georgia, phenomenally athletic linebacker. He can pass rush as well. And also Nick Emenwari out of South Carolina. He had a 10 relative athletic score, highest for a safety ever. So I could see Ejiro Evero wanting to get a freak athlete like Nick Emenwari there at 8. Maybe a little high, but I would not hate it either because the guy's got some phenomenal potential. But Chris, what do you think the Panthers are going to do at 8?
Well, I mean, like we've said, I know we've had the debates about whether if they need to add to their secondary or not, but I think it's one of those situations where you can't really go wrong as long as you don't make some ridiculous thing like Ashton Genty or something. I'm nothing against him. I love Ashton Genty, but I have them going Will Johnson. I know they were toward the middle when it came to pass defense, but I think with him still being on the board, I would personally, if I was Carolina's GM, I would go for him. I'm sure that would make you really happy, Aaron, having a Michigan guy come and play at Bank of America Stadium.
I would love that. Will Johnson, Mason Graham, get one of them in Carolina because those are two massive positions of need. But Jason, what do you think the Panthers are going to do here?
Well, hopefully they don't mess this one up and go out and get something they shouldn't. But I got him going Graham too. Mason Graham, I think he's on the board after those other defensive guys go. I think he's the best defensive player on the board. You definitely need to shore up that defense. I know you have to work on that offensive line right now because Bryce Young, he still needs a little bit of help, and I still think you do need running back help, but this is a deeper, later round running back draft. So I think they're going to pick up somebody probably in the second or third round at running back. But yeah, Mason Graham, I think he goes to Carolina. I don't think there's no doubt about it.
And I was tempted to have them go McMillan here because you said Bryce Young needs help. I think he needs help at wide receiver. Get him another guy to throw the ball to that is not Adam Thielen. Jalen Coker, solid undrafted rookie, but Bryce Young needs more to throw to. Yeah. I wouldn't hate a McMillan pick. I just think that defense has got to be priority one. Defense, first few rounds, maybe look at a running back in the third or fourth, but Carolina can move the ball all right. I like Chuba as a running back one. That's why I wouldn't want them using a day 1 or day 2 pick on a running back because he's playing some phenomenal football right now. Up next at 9, it's the New Orleans Saints. Again, absolute mess. Negative $30 million in cap space. They are going to be struggling to do much of anything for the next few years until they can fix that cap situation. For now, I got them going an absolute monster of an athlete, Shamar Stewart, defensive end out of Texas A&M, another guy who had a 10 relative athletic score, phenomenal combine. Yes, maybe his pass rush repertoire isn't necessarily refined, and he tends to be reliant on his athleticism to win reps that he might not be able to in the NFL. He's still a phenomenal athlete, though, and New Orleans needs help on defense. I got them going, Shamar. Chris, what do you think the Saints are going to do here?
Yeah, I mean, this is, we've talked about this on multiple shows about their cap situation and how these draft picks are really the only way they're going to be getting talent because they will not be getting that through free agency. They physically cannot do that. They have an aging core, whatever you want to call what they have in New Orleans, but I also have them going Shamar Stewart as well. I think that would be pretty ideal. He's a freak athlete, and if he could be there for a little bit, he could rev up that pass. He could rev up that pass rush, especially pass and rush, especially in that division where there's a lot of teams that really struggle with offensive line. So I think that could go steal them a few wins. So give me Stewart.
Jason, what do you think the New Orleans Saints here do at 9? Words.
Trade and try to get some more draft capital because you need way too many pieces. But I still have them on my board, so I'm going to go Will Johnson. They need to help. They need help on that pass defense. He's one of the best available. So this early in the draft, take the best available. When you need that much stuff, don't overthink it. Just take the best guy in front of you.
And next up at 10, we got the Chicago Bears, another incredibly easy pick for me. They brought in a couple guards so far, so you go best offensive tackle available. That for me is Kelvin Banks Jr. out of Texas. You got a good right tackle in Darnell Wright. Throw Kelvin Banks on the left. Phenomenal physical attributes. The guy is quick, super explosive in the short area, and Caleb Williams needs to be protected. Most sacked quarterback in the league. You're not setting the guy up for success. Again, Ben Johnson coming from Detroit. They put a lot of emphasis on the trenches and I think he's going to carry that with him, fix that offensive line like we've already seen him make steps to do. Keep it going. Kelvin Banks at 10. Easy pick for me. Chris, what do you have the Bears doing?
I'm also having them go offensive line. I completely agree with you, Aaron. I mean, Caleb Williams was held back because of that offensive line. Most sack quarterback didn't give him enough time. And even despite that, he had a pretty darn good year. So did DJ Moore. So did that receiving, that receiving core in general. And I'm going to go with the offensive lineman that you already picked. He just happens to still be on my board, Armand Membo. I mean, 6'4", 332 monster. Protecting Caleb Williams needs to be paramount, because while Chicago has a lot of stuff that they need to go for, first round, you protect Caleb Williams, then you focus on the rest. Then you focus on the secondary. You got a talent like Tyreek Stevenson there who may have embarrassed himself unbelievably, but a reason for a lot of those embarrassing losses was because of Caleb Williams' lack of protection for the offensive line.
Jason, what do you think the Bears do here to round out the top 10?
Well, this is curious because, they've already brought in some offensive line help. So I think the Bears kind of switch things up. I think they go out and get Luther Burden the third. I think they go get another wide receiver, top pick. You're probably going to lose. My brain's not working here. Free agency. Wide receiver, Keenan Allen. Excuse me, I couldn't get my brain to work there for a second. So I think you let Keenan Allen go because you're going to pay too much for an aging wide receiver. You go out and you put Luther Burden on one side. You also have Odunez on the other side. So you've already been working on that offensive line even before the draft. And I think there's enough in this draft where they can still get some offensive line help. So I think they kind of shock everybody. I think they go Luther Burden, wide receiver.
I wouldn't necessarily hate that pick in all honesty. I just think that they got to stack that offensive line. Yes, Keenan Allen's gone. He might not be back. So getting another wide receiver for Caleb Williams to throw to would definitely be a good pick. And up at 11 are the San Francisco 49ers, and they're kind of in rebuild mode right now. They got to retool that defense because when the 49ers are good, they have had a stout defense, and they need to get back to that. You got Robert Saleh back there as their defensive coordinator. I think they're going to go Jalon Walker out of Georgia. Like I said earlier, he can pass rush phenomenally well, and the guy's just a great linebacker too. Just watch what he did at Georgia. Phenomenal player. 49ers need a difference maker on defense. Rumors are that Joey Bosa might be coming as well. That's not going to be enough, though. Get a young guy in who's going to be a potential leader of that defense 3-4 years down the road. Chris, what do you think the 49ers do here at 11?
Well, and I've made this point before as well, is that this is before free agency. So we're just pretending that none of these guys exist, or they're not really in the hypothetical, or at least the way that I'm approaching this mock draft here today. And I'm going to assume that they don't get the other Bosa brother just because even though it's probably destiny set up or whatever else going. I also have them going Jalon Walker as well. I think another linebacker piece would be great. I was very close between him and Michael Williams, but give me Walker. I mean, they need all the help that they can get on defense right now. Despite that, they actually had the second best pass defense, which is still crazy to me. I mean, number one was Tennessee, which still, I just looked at that and I couldn't believe that when it came to yards that Tennessee had number one.
I didn't know that either. That's really weird. But Jason, what do you think the 49ers do here?
Another team that needs a lot, the whole quarterback contract still is kind of up in the air then, what they're going to do with that. So that's going to make a huge difference on how they go out and attack free agency. They definitely need help on the defense. I would not be surprised if they went wide receiver and took Golden from Texas, because you just lost Debo. You're going to lose Ayuk. So, I mean, right now you need some wide receiver help. So I would not be surprised if they took a top wide receiver in this draft. But I think they go defense on it too. Jalen Walker, I like him too, out of Georgia. He's a monster. They need some help on that defense. That NFC West can be won. There's not one team in there everybody's chasing. I think everybody's just kind of bunched together. So it's all about making the right moves and just kind of surviving the West because you can get out of there pretty easily. So I think they go Walker out of Georgia with their pick.
And up next at 12, we have the Dallas Cowboys. This is another incredibly easy pick for me, and I hate it. I hate that he's fallen this far on my mock draft, but it's got to be Ashton Genty. That run game absolutely struggled, and he's going to come in and be a difference maker from day one. Give me Ashton Genty at 12 to the Cowboys. I mean, look, there's nothing you can really say about this pick if you watched Boise State at all this past season. The guy really should have won Heisman, and it sucks that he didn't. But Chris, what do you have the Cowboys doing here?
Hey, man, as long as Jason keeps up with this trend, we might have back-to-back sweeps, which is not something that was on my bingo card going into this program today. But yeah, I got Ashton Genty. I mean, you already said pretty much everything I was going to say, so I'll make it pretty brief. He should have won the Heisman. He at least made a pretty darn good candidacy for it. Probably the best college running back ever. Dallas's rush was terrible. And just an electric offensive player behind a still respectable offensive line. Genty without a question.
And Jason, are you going to make it a clean sweep here with Genty going to the Cowboys?
You know, I should, but the Dallas Cowboys have proven that they don't make the right choice sometimes. I really see them shoring up that offensive line. You got Membo, the offensive tackle out of Mizzou. I think he goes. I think they work on that offensive line as much as Cowboy fans are dying for a running back. I still think there's a few running backs in this draft in that second or third round that they could pick up. I don't think they need to kind of, I want to say waste, but I don't think they need to go running back right off the board. So I'm going to break the mold a little bit here. Give me Armand at the pick number 12.
I mean, look, I wouldn't hate that either. I kind of hope it happens, honestly, so the Cowboys
so
don't get Ashton Genty. I want them to do something. I don't even want to say ridiculous because that's not a ridiculous pick. Membo is a very, very good football player, but I just don't want Genty on the Cowboys because I want to be able to root for the guy.
I want to draft him in fantasy football, but I can't do it if he's on the Cowboys.
Man, I think I got the third overall pick in a dynasty league. I'm hoping Genty falls to me. I need help at running back. It's dire straits for me in that dynasty league. I was in the toilet bowl last season. I got to bounce back, but up at 13, we got the Miami Dolphins. Again, another easy pick for me. Tua's been hit way too much, too many concussions. You got to get offensive line, best available player, honestly. And for me, that is Tyler Booker out of Alabama. Really good length at guard, super powerful. He can take a hit and he can dish it out as well as he can take it. You got to get a replacement for Robert Hunt after he went to the Panthers, and Tyler Booker can absolutely be that player. But regardless, it's got to be offensive line. Doesn't necessarily matter the player. You need to make protecting Tua your absolute top priority. Nothing more important. Jason, what do you think the Dolphins do at 13?
Honestly, nothing's going to protect Tua unless you put him in a bubble because he has been hit way too many times. I think he's unfortunately shell-shocked right now. I'm going to go kind of crazy on this one because I'm trying to think open-minded in this draft. I was trying to like sitting here looking at my notes. I think the Miami Dolphins still look at the offensive side of the ball. I think they take the first tight end off the board. I think they go Colston Loveland out of Michigan. I think they take the big kid out of Michigan. They need some help at the tight end position. You got wide receivers. I think they're going to keep Hill. It doesn't look like he wants to go anywhere now. So, yeah, I think they kind of shock everybody and do something a little bit different. I think they go Colston Loveland, first tight end off the board.
Chris, what do you have the Dolphins doing at 13? You're going to go offensive line, or do you have them doing something a little more out there and getting another weapon for Tua to throw to?
I mean, I've already had my my weirder pick. I mean, my number 3 overall was probably the weirder one. Number 3, number 2 overall were my 2 weird ones. So I'm gonna stick with offensive line. I mean, Miami. On a side note, Miami is a team that is not as far out as people act like they are, especially if they can keep Tyreek Hill. I mean, So got A-Chain, you got Tua, who plays good when he's healthy. Jalen Waddle, too, who did have a down year, and at least a respectable defense with like Jordan Poyer, Javon Holland, etc. So give me Calvin Banks Jr. He's still on the board for me, 6'5", 315. You can't argue with that. Give me offensive tackle. I think as long as you get a big, quick-moving offensive lineman to be able to adapt to his movements, the way that he goes out of the pocket, I think it'll benefit. I mean, I think they're pretty close still. They're not as far out as people are acting.
And up at 14, we got the Indianapolis Colts, and this is where I have my first tight end going off the board. For me, it's not Colston Loveland. It is Tyler Warren out of Penn State. I think the versatility that he brings is going to be incredibly valuable for that Colts team. He is a phenomenal run blocker. And with Jonathan Taylor back there, he's going to be a big part of your offense because the Colts quarterback situation isn't too great. The Anthony Richardson experiment seems like it's failing at this point in time. They've said they're going to bring in competition for him. We don't know who that is yet. Again, pre-free agency, so this could change. But I think Tyler Warren is a phenomenal pick at 14 for the Colts. Chris, what do you think Indianapolis is going to do here?
I really like that point, too, because I was bouncing between Warren and the guy I'm going to go with, and I'm going to go with Malachi Starks. I mean, I think that secondary also struggled, and, you know, he's a well-built safety, and him still being there, you help out with the secondary because you have some pretty darn good quarterbacks in that division, especially guys like CJ Stroud. So, and Trevor Lawrence, guys who can, you know, dice up a defense when they're healthy, when they have people around them. So, give me Starks, give me first safety off the board to Indy.
Jason, what do you think Indy's going to do here?
Another one of those teams that kind of just makes you scratch your head sometimes. From what I'm seeing, kind of hearing in the wind here, they may bring in Danny Dimes to back up Richardson to give him some. I don't know if you want to call it.
Don't want to call it competition exactly.
Oh God! I mean, I couldn't even get it out of my mouth. Competition. They still need a lot of help. They need a lot of defensive help. That team does need a lot of defensive help. But right now, that offensive line, if you need to protect Richardson, you talk about a guy that's just injury prone right now. I think they go Josh Simmons, offensive tackle, Ohio State. I think they shore up the offensive line. They're obviously going to run the ball a lot. So I can see them just having to protect whoever quarterback they're going to have back there. They're going to protect them. The Colts don't do the sexy pick unless they're number one and it's Peyton Manning. But other than that, you know, they're just not big on drafts. But Taylor is still a stud at running back, so you better have a great offensive line because they're going to run the ball a lot.
Mm-hmm. And up next, another NFC South team. It's the Atlanta Falcons. I think you got to get help on defense. For me, the best defensive player available is Mikael Williams out of Georgia. The Falcons finally get a Georgia player, keep him in the state of Georgia. But, I mean, the guy is just – he has all the tools to be an absolute game breaker at edge. Phenomenal size, insane motor. I mean, the guy's ceiling is absolutely sky high. I think he could be an absolute menace for years to come. And to me, Falcons maybe go an offensive player. Penix obviously looks solid. Maybe you want to get him some other weapons to throw the ball to, but it's got to be defense. You got to fix that defense with some serious urgency. Chris, what do you think the Falcons do?
I objectively think they should go defense because that's the right choice. But as I've made this joke many times, the Falcons are like a fantasy team. They just go with the best available. And I think they're going to do something ridiculous. I think they are. I think they're going to draft Matthew Golden.
Wow. Okay.
I do. Wow. I think they're going to go for him. It would not surprise me. He's a fast receiver, and it makes no sense. But when was the last time a Falcons pick made sense in the first round?
I mean, I feel like Kyle Pitts kind of made sense at the time.
Of that.
Yeah.
No.
Jason, obviously, like Chris said, Falcons don't like to make smart picks all the time. Exactly. What do you think they're going to do here?
I think they do something semi-smart, but I think they stay in state. I still have him on my board, Malachi Starks. safety out of Georgia. I think they get the Georgia boy. That defense definitely needs help. Look, they're going to have offensive weapons. I think they're going to bring in some free agents with Penix, the way he looked at the end of the season. I think people got excited. Drake Ludden over there. Even Kyle Pitts showed up every once in a while. So I could see them getting into the free agent mix because Atlanta likes to throw money around like crazy. I mean, look how much they gave to Kirk Cousins to ride the bench. So I don't think they have to worry about that. But Malachi Starks, I think you just go out, you get yourself a stud safety, start shoring up that defense because that NFC South, they have a chance to really make noise there. There's not a lot of competition. I mean, the Panthers still kind of up and coming. The Bucks may have regressed a little bit with some of the pieces that they're going to lose. The Saints are trash, so I mean, you're definitely going to be better than them. So you have a chance with the right pieces and playing some defense to really win that NFC South.
Without a doubt, NFC South definitely feels like it's up for grabs. I still think it's Tampa Bay's division to lose for the next few years. Up next to round out the top half of the draft, we got the Arizona Cardinals. It's got to be defense for me. I think you go in absolute the highest graded defensive player this past season. It's got to be Mike Green out of Marshall. He had a phenomenal Senior Bowl. The guy absolutely ran over Josh Connerly out of Oregon. Insane bull rush. I mean, I am so excited to see what Mike Green can do in the NFL coming out of a Sun Belt school. Obviously, bit of a rival of App State, but you got to give flowers when you have a phenomenal group of 5 player like this who's a potential first-round pick. So for me, Arizona gets a super talented edge rusher in Mike Green. Jason, what do you think they do here?
James Pierce Jr. out of Tennessee. I still think they go defense. They need some help on the defensive side of the ball. They have some offensive weapons. This draft is deep enough, and there's some free agents out there that probably wouldn't mind going to Arizona. So I think that they're going to do some offensive moves that are going to help them, but I think that's going to be later in the draft and free agency. So I think they're just going to load up on defense this year because they needed that help. And the Arizona Cardinals are a weird team. They kind of look good one day and then they look like trash and then they fade away. And a lot of that has to do with defense. They have a stud tight end. You have Marvin Harrison Jr. there, great wide receiver. James Conner is still serviceable. I think they go out in the 3rd or 4th round. I think they pick up another running back. I know they did last year with I can't remember their running back's name right now, but I think they go defense. They just need to do something that's going to make a splash. So Pierce Jr. out of Tennessee.
And Chris, what do you think the Cardinals do at 16?
Again, I think this is one of those picks where if you play your cards right and you don't do something ridiculous, you'll win-win. I mean, at least when it comes to your selection, how that pans out long-term, obviously nobody knows how that's going to pan out long-term. So I do have them just kind of going with a safe pick, similar to Jason's pick, except in the other side of the ball. I have them going Tyler Booker out of Alabama, going offensive guard. Just go ahead and protect Kyler Murray. I mean, he's your franchise quarterback. As Jason mentioned, you got a serviceable running back, and you got a pretty darn good wide receiver in Marvin Harrison Jr., even though he kind of teetered off the end toward the end. I think you give Kyler Murray a little more time, play his game, especially how he escapes the pocket. He makes do with his size when he has to, and I think that would be a good move to go with a physical guy like Booker.
And up at 17, we got the Cincinnati Bengals. Trey Hendrickson seeking a trade. Sam Hubbard retired. You need to get some pass rush. Before I was going secondary last mock, I think I had them going Malachi Starks. With Hubbard gone and Hendrickson likely gone as well, you need to go defensive end. And for me, that is James Pierce Jr., insane pass rusher. Yes, he has some potential character concerns, but Cincinnati has not really cared about that in the past, and this will be very on par for the AFC North. Keep that trend going. Get a really talented player in who has some potential character questions. And, I mean, hey, he's also he fills a position of need. Insane pass rusher, arguably one of the best in the draft. Jason, what do you got the Bengals doing here?
Well, it's definitely defense. they still need, they still have questions on offense. You still need to figure out a long-term deal for T. Higgins. The just franchising him again doesn't make any sense. Get him long-term because you'll be able to free up some more cap money. You got to do something with Chase. Let's get that out of the way and get it done so we can move on with life here. It's either Green or Campbell, Jihad Campbell. I'm going to go Mike Green out of Marshall. I think he's just a tick higher on my board. So they do need that defensive help. I don't think they can go wrong anywhere as long as they pick a defensive player. But I'm going to go Mike Green, edge out of Marshall. I think they go with him. He's just kind of just a tick higher up to me for her than Jihad Campbell.
And Chris, what do you think the Bengals do here? Do you have another weird pick where they go offense, or do you think they're going to be smart
like
here
a wide receiver
defense that clearly needs a lot of help?
I mean, I think that they did kind of wise up a little bit, maybe at least. I mean, the wheels kind of fell off for that franchise at the last second. I mentioned this when I commented in one of the more recent Out of Pocket episodes, where it seems like the team is satisfied, at least the management, not the fan base, obviously, and not the players. But it seems like the general management is just satisfied with that one Super Bowl loss, even though they have no ring to show for it. But I do think that they wise up and they go for a guy who I had fall a little bit farther than I thought he would initially. But it is what it is. I have him going Michael Williams. I finally have him coming off the board. Good pass rusher. All you can really ask for. I think it would be perfect. It could be secondary edge, defense tackle, anything.
Literally,
even if you want to be weird and you want to go offense, just go with a guard or a tackle to protect Burrow like that. I would be happy with that. Most of my friends who are Bengals fans would even be okay with that at this point.
I think if they go anything other than defense, that's the wrong pick. Spin a wheel, whatever defensive position it lands on, draft the best player available there. They need help. Their defense is the reason they were not in the playoffs this year. Joe Burrow did everything in his power to get that team to the playoffs. Wasn't enough because the defense was just that bad. Up at 18, we got the Seattle Seahawks. Tyler Lockett's gone. DK Metcalf is on the trading block. I think they go wide receiver here. First one off the board at pick 18. Yes, he's fallen quite a ways. It's got to be Teteroa McMillan out of Arizona. Wide receiver one, phenomenal size, great catch radius. Not necessarily best long speed, but he is quick enough. And Seattle's going to need help at wide receiver with Metcalf and Lockett both gone. But Jason, what do you have the Seahawks doing here at 18?
I think they go wide receiver also, but I have them because I had McMillan and Burden off my board already. But I think they go Matthew Golden there for Texas. Yeah, you definitely need some kind of top tier weapon. Losing Metcalf, hopefully they can trade him and get maybe some draft capital for this year, and then of course probably next year too, because I think he's worthy of that. But give me Golden, wide receiver out of Texas. They need some help. It'd be interesting to see who they're going to go. They may choose a quarterback, so I don't know. This might be a Dylan Gabriel situation. So I don't know if they waste that first pick and take a hometown kid. Because they're obviously trading Geno away. You're going to need someone to throw somebody the football. You have no one catching the football right now in Seattle, and you have no one throwing the football right now. You just got a bunch of runners, and that's about it. They desperately need help on that offensive line. They desperately need help on that defense. The Legion of Boom is dead. The 12th man in Seattle used to fear teams going in there. Now they're a laughingstock when the Giants can come in and beat you at home. You definitely need some help on the defensive side of the ball, but I think they go Golden with that pick.
And Chris, prior to Metcalf requesting a trade, I had them go on offensive line or defense to try and bring back that Legion of Boom. But with the release of Tyler Lockett and the trade request of DK Metcalf, are you going to keep this wide receiver trend going, or do you have them moving in a different direction than me and Jason did?
I mean, I think it's a deep wide receiver draft. I mean, it really is. This is one of the deep wide receiver drafts that we've seen in quite some time. And, I don't think Seattle's necessarily, I won't say dumb enough, but to go for a quarterback right now, I mean, it would be dumb, but you might as well just wait, especially because how many more are going to come off the board? I mean, based on the teams that are remaining, a lot of them don't need quarterbacks because you're leaning into the playoff teams at this point. So I do have them going defense. I'm going to break the trend. I'm going to have them going Derek Harmon. It really just wouldn't surprise me going with defensive tackle, knowing the way that Seattle drafts, the way that they kind of handle themselves. I have them going defense, and I think they're going to wait draft a receiver in the second round because the stock's deep enough, or they might just trade into the early second round.
And up next, we got the Buccaneers. We're into the playoff teams now. I think they could use a little bit of help on defense. I feel like Chris Godwin's going to be back. I don't think they're going to need help on offense. And Levante David's getting up there in age, so I think they're going to pick his heir apparent in Jihad Campbell out of Alabama. Phenomenal athlete, incredibly explosive. I mean, great linebacker who can also blitz super effectively. I really don't want to see him in the NFC South. I don't want to have to deal with him twice a year. Chris, what do you got the Bucs doing at 19?
Hey, man, I have them getting a steal out of your Sun Belt. I have them going Mike Green. I mean, I think that would be fantastic.
I would hate
if he could fall that far. But unfortunately for you, I do have them getting a steal. I have him falling down that far simply because he's not from a Power 5. He's not from a Georgia or an Alabama. Well, you've already talked about how great he is, how great of a combine he had, how fast, how athletic he is. So, yeah, I mean, Tampa is a very consistent, I think, team, but they need an edge rusher. So, give me Mike Green.
And Jason, what do you think the Buccaneers do here?
I'm going with what you got, man. Jihad Campbell, linebacker out of Bama. I think he fits right in there. He's that kind of Bucs type player. They need some explosiveness on that defense right now. I wouldn't be surprised if they went to an Emuwara, a safety out of South Carolina, or I'm sorry, out of SC. But I think they go Jihad Campbell. I think they need a big banger coming out of that backfield.
And up next, we got one of the most surprising teams this past season in the Denver Broncos. Phenomenal defense. And given how well their defense played, I think you got to address offense. Get Bo Nix another weapon to throw to. I have another tight end off the board, Colston Loveland, the best receiving tight end in the class. But he doesn't quite have the versatility of a Tyler Warren. So that's why I had him going after Warren. But he was underused at Michigan because – Michigan just had a super run-heavy offense. They passed when they needed to, but they just wanted to run the ball. Even in the national championship year, the season before last, they were still super run-heavy, but Loveland, phenomenally talented player. You can really line him up all over the place. He's not the best run blocker, but he's not terrible either, and I think he would be a phenomenal weapon to add to that Broncos offense. Chris, what do you have Denver doing here?
I'm going tight end as well. I just have Warren still on the board, and the only reason he's still on my board is because there's a lot of teams that just I don't think really need tight ends necessarily, or I don't think they're going to be at least valuing them. Not necessarily that they don't need them. By the way, I just remember that Adam Troutman was their number one this past year, and I remember everybody being so big on him fantasy wise, like 2-3 years ago, and he was with the Saints. That was like some random thing. I remember everybody was all crazy about.
He was like a big waiver pickup.
Yeah, I remember that. That feels like a fever dream. But yeah, give me Warren. I mean, he's best overall tight end. He can add a little bit of the blocking game and in the receiving game. Versatile, protect Bo Nix, and because he did get sacked a decent amount. So, and I was between that and receiver because I do think they need to take some stress off Cortland Sutton. But yeah, I think it's win-win receiver or tight end with them.
Jason, what do you think the Broncos are going to do here at 20th overall?
He's still on my board. Ashton Genty. I think they go running back. Javonte Williams is not it. A lot of the other guys that they have back there are not it. I think they need an explosive running back right now in Denver. They have a history of explosive running backs, and right now they don't have that. So if he falls, which right now it looks like he might, I got Ashton Genty going to Denver.
Ashton Genty falling all the way to 20. I feel like at that point a team's going to try and trade up for him. In all honesty, if he drops below like 15, I think a team is going to try and jump up there and get a player.
This is a pretty deep draft class for running backs right now. So, as you look at running backs right now,
clearly the best in the class, though. So I could see a team getting jumpy and trading up for him. Chris, next up at 21, it's your Pittsburgh Steelers. This is another pick that I'm keeping the same as the first mock draft. It's got to be Emeka Egbuka. Like I said in our last mock draft, he brings a lot as a run blocker, as a wide receiver. And also, I was talking with the GM at work. He's a big Ohio State guy, super high on Emeka Egbuka. But what he mentioned to me that he really liked about him is that he is a phenomenal leader and has great character. And Pittsburgh needs that at wide receiver. You need the anti-George Pickens in terms of personality, and I feel like that is Emeka Egbuka. I mean, I feel like I've said what I needed to say. Phenomenal receiver, all-time leader at Ohio State in receptions, and he was never the best receiver in that room, which speaks volumes to just how consistent he was throughout his college career. I could also see a Matthew Golden or Luther Burden, but what makes the difference for me with Egbuka to the Steelers are his character and his ability as a run blocker. Chris, what do you have your Pittsburgh Steelers doing in the first round?
I mean, I was close because, knowing the Steelers, they would go and they would draft like James Pierce or something because of behavioral issues. That would be a very Steelers move. But I don't have them doing that. I also have them going Egbuka. I mean, basically for the same reasons that you said, and also you take attention off of George Pickens, assuming that he's still there. Because I mean, Pickens got fed a lot, and he made do with that with a phenomenal highlight reel catches that he made. But he's getting double, triple teamed because the only other really relevant pass catcher is Freiermuth. So that was rough. And I mean, knowing the Steelers, they're going to draft like Chad Campbell. They're going to just draft a linebacker. They're going to do a very Steelers move. And I won't be that mad. I just think Egbuka would be a smarter move, but the Steelers are going to Steeler. We all know that.
I hope they stop Steelering for your sake, because I feel like at some point the fan base needs to start getting angry about, I don't want to say mediocrity because they're not mediocre. They're consistently having winning seasons. But Chris, if I was you, if this is another classic Steelers season, I would be furious because that defense is too good.
The doom cycle we're in.
Something needs to change, and I'm just not sure what it is. It all started when they waited too long to get a replacement for Big Ben, and we're still in this cycle of them just going through quarterbacks and no one's sticking. Hopefully Justin Fields can. I liked what we saw from him this year. But Jason, what do you think the Pittsburgh Steelers do here?
I'm going to agree with you too. I think they go Egbuka at Ohio State, wide receiver. They definitely need something on the offensive side of the ball. They're always going to have those gritty, tough defenses. They're always going to find that steal in the draft because they do draft and find guys very well, especially in the back half of the drafts. I mean, they really do very well at that, but they need to figure out what they're going to do at quarterback. If you're going to go Justin Fields, you need to come out and just let everybody know he's going to be our number one. He's going to be the guy moving forward and build off of him. Najee Harris is getting ready to leave, so I wouldn't be surprised in that second or third round if they go running back to get Warren some help. But they definitely need wide receiver. You can't count on Pickens. Unfortunately, he is I hope he learns and doesn't become a head case, but it doesn't look like that. So Egbuka, I think bringing him in, maybe that some of that positivity will rub off on him.
And next up, we got another team who had an absolutely surprising season. It's the Los Angeles Chargers. And like we said earlier in the show, Joey Bosa is gone, so they need help at edge. I have them going with come on, of course, my screen froze. I got them going Nick Scorton out of Texas A&M, incredibly polished pass rusher that I think Jim Harbaugh would be able to get the most out of. Before this, I had them going receiver or maybe tight end if Colston Loveland dropped because they need pass catchers. They need more than Lad McConkey for Herbert to throw the ball to. But with Bosa gone, the need at edge just feels much more apparent. So I got them going Scorton out of A&M. But Jason, what do you think the Chargers do here?
I wouldn't be surprised to see Chargers, trade up and try to get, a Green, a Campbell. So, one of those higher defensive guys. But I still got them on my board. I'm going Tyler Warren, tight end out of Penn State. They do have the need. Lad McConkey, Lad the Impaler, I think he's a stud wide receiver, but he can't be the only one because if he starts getting doubled, who else are you going to throw to? Quentin Johnson can't catch a cold, so give Herbert some help. He's also a really, really good pass blocker, so I think they can use that help too. So give me Tyler Warren, Penn State tight end, getting Herbert some help.
Jason, I absolutely love that pick. Tyler Warren feels like a Jim Harbaugh player in all honesty. Just super versatile tight end, great run blocker, good receiver as well. Chris, what do you have the Chargers doing here?
I have them going edge rusher, and ironically, I actually have James Pierce still on my board, which he almost came off the board because I figured the Steelers would have gone for him. And I think Jim Harbaugh is going to take a good look at James Pierce, and he's going to see some behavioral issues, and that's not very thing that's going to vibe with him. I just don't think he will. And I did debate just having them pick him because he is objectively, I guess, as a prospect better. But I do still have Nick Skirton on my board. He's a very well developed, a lot more, I guess, calm. I guess is a better way. Not as much behavioral issues there. So give me the Texas A&M edge rusher. I think they're going to go edge rusher, either edge rusher or DT. You really can't lose. I mean, I do agree with the point about going receiver. I did debate having them go Luther Burton, but I think they wait, again, similar to my points with previous teams, deep receiver class.
And I think Kenneth Grant is a player that is very much a likely pick. Harbaugh loves his Michigan guys. I could see him wanting to reunite with Grant, a really key part of that Michigan defense that was super stout and was the only reason that they were able to do really anything this season, because that offense, dear Lord, it was terrible. It made me miss Shea Patterson from 2020. And Chris, you know how ridiculous that is for me to say that. Up next, we got the Green Bay Packers with, like I said last mock draft, it seems like Jair Alexander is likely out in Green Bay. So I have them going with one of the best corners available. I got Jahdae Barron out of Texas. He's got some versatility as well. He can line him up at safety. And the Packers are going to need help on defense if Alexander is gone. I was tempted to go wide receiver here as well because that wide receiver core was so banged up. And nobody really seems to want to step up to the plate and become that wide receiver one for the Packers. Super close for me between corner, wide receiver. Ended up going with corner here. Maybe they do something in free agency. Who knows? Give it a couple weeks. It's going to be a different mock draft. But Chris, what do you have the Packers doing here in the first round?
So I just want to let you guys know that I've just been taking turns with my mock drafts between the Steelers and the Packers. One team objectively doing what they should be doing, and then the other team not doing that and doing what they always do. Green Bay never drafted a receiver hardly with Aaron Rodgers, and even after he left, they still didn't give Jordan Love that much help. See, I got him going to Barron as well. I mean, they're going to go corner. That secondary was pretty challenged, but. Yeah, I mean, they should go with a guy like Luther Burton, or for you guys like Matthew Golding or someone who's still on the board, but they're never going to draft a receiver in the first round. I think that pigs will fly before they do
that. Jason, what do you got the Packers doing here?
Definitely on the defensive side of the ball. I think they're going to pick up some wide receiver help in free agency. I think they're going to do some trading too, because that wide receiver room is pretty heavy in Green Bay, but just none of them ever really emerged to be great. Reed fell off, Dobbs with the talking, and then he kind of fell off, Dontavian Wicks. So, I mean, they have some wide receiver talent, but I think it just didn't fit in that room. I think they need to bring somebody in like a Keenan Allen. Don't be surprised to see a Devontae Adams reunion in Green Bay, which I think would be great for that young wide receiver core. But I think they go defense. I think they go Emenwari, Nick Emenwari, the safety out of SC. I think they definitely need something on that defense to spark them. I could see them going cornerback. They need an edge rusher. They just need a lot of help on that defense because, man, that NFC North is a juggernaut, and they know they need to load up, and they know they're going to need to stop the Bears. They're going to need to stop the Lions, and you're going to need to stop the Vikings. So you better load up on defense this whole draft. Don't even pick an offensive player at all. Just nothing but defense, and hope that you can stop those teams.
Without a doubt, defense has got to be priority. Up next, we got the Minnesota Vikings. Harrison Smith, gone. Stephon Gilmore, gone. You need help in the secondary. This is where I have Nick Emenwari going. Again, insane athlete, highest relative athletic score for a safety ever, I believe. And this feels like a super easy pick for me. You got a super talented player falls to you in the latter half of the first round. Easy pick. You need help in the secondary, and Nick Emenwari is going to be the player to do that. Chris, what do you have the Vikings doing here?
I mean, I think that it's going to be close between Siobhan Ravel and Nick Emenwari, but I'm going to go with Nick Emenwari as well. I mean, I think that they just need help in the secondary. They need to go corner. They need to go safety. Either one, I think, would be beneficial for them. I was debating going with an offensive line piece to protect J.J. McCarthy coming off of that injury, but I think they're probably going to wait to the second round to do that. And they still have a good receiving core. They still have objectively I would say second best wide receiver in the NFL on their team. So,
Jason, what do you think the Vikings do at 24?
I think they go offensive line. I don't hear anything really in the wind of Sam Darnold coming back, which I think is a mistake. I think they should bring him back and let JJ sit behind him and kind of study and learn for the next couple of years and truly get healthy. But I think they go offensive line. Tyler Booker out of Bama, just big offensive line guy. Get him some help. They're going to need pass blocking. They're going to need run protection. So I think they just do the kind of, meat and potatoes, bland pick offensive lineman, because you're going to have, no matter what, you're going to have a quarterback back there that's going to need some help. Even if Sam Darnold does come back, you still need to get him some pass protection. So I think they go offensive line. Booker out of Bama.
Up next at 25 are the Houston Texans, and this is a team that I do have going offensive line because, like we said earlier in the show, we've seen a lot of young quarterbacks these past couple seasons forced to play behind atrocious offensive lines, and it just does not work out. You're doing a disservice to your potential franchise quarterback if you do not go offensive line to help protect him. I got them going Josh Simmons out of Ohio State. Yes, he's coming off of an injury, but prior to that, he was playing at a All-American level. Again, if he didn't get injured, I think this guy's a top 15 pick, arguably the best tackle in the whole draft. So getting him at 25 would be a massive steal for Houston. Chris, what do you think the Texans are going to do here?
I'm going Josh Simmons as well. C.J. Stroud is the second most sacked quarterback in the NFL, and that was a huge reason why he had that down year. You can only do so much when you're constantly either on your back or running away from it. So give me Josh Simmons. I agree with you. He would have been a lot higher if not for the injury. Fantastic offensive tackle. I think if you go any type of offensive line here, it's a win. I was close between that and Evan Colson-Loveland come off the board too. I mean, the Texans are, I don't know about you guys, but I don't know if you could ever name a relevant Texans tight end. So Jordan Aiken.
Yeah, no, I'm drawing a blank.
Dalton Schultz, just because I was there last year.
Yeah. I was the big Brevin Jordan guy when
Brevin
he got him, and I think he could still be talented, but he's obviously not necessarily panning out yet. Jason, what do you think the Texans do here?
Yeah, they definitely need to work on that offensive line. C.J. Stroud, a down year, sophomore slump. Even though they still played well towards the end, they're going to need some wide receiver help. I know picking up Kirk kind of gives them a little bit of a piece. I think he's an okay third or fourth option. I still think they need something better than that. I don't see Diggs coming back. I don't think they're going to pay enough for him, especially being hurt. Tank Dell, I feel bad for him, man. I think his career is done. He's not going to be back next year. Another surgery on that leg. That was a bad injury. So unfortunately, I don't think he plays football again, which is sad to say. So it would not surprise me to see them start getting some wide receiver help, but I think they can do that in free agency. Greg Zabel, North Dakota State. I think they just need a big corn-fed boy, put him right there, block for C.J. Stroud, and they need some help because they need to keep him upright. When he's upright and he can throw the football, he can sling it to Nico Collins like nobody's business. They do need help at wide receiver. I think they do need some help at tight end. I would not be surprised to see Mason Taylor out of LSU as a tight end piece there, because I don't think Dalton Schultz is the answer. I think they need a little extra help there, but that's later in the draft. But I think they go Zabel, North Dakota State.
Up next, we got the Rams, and this is an interesting pick for me. I think they could use a little bit of help to add to that young, talented defense, but with Cooper Kupp likely getting traded or just released if the Rams can't trade him, I think they're going to want to add another young wide receiver. I have Matthew Golden going here at 26 to the Rams. I think him and Puka Nacua would make for an incredibly dangerous wide receiver duo. Chris, like you said earlier, Matthew Golden, great 40 at the combine, outran his Texas teammate Isaiah Bond, who said he was going to break the 40 record at the combine. Obviously didn't happen, but Bond had a great 40 to his own right. And this is a pick where I don't know if they can necessarily go wrong here. Stafford's getting older. This is where I feel like if we're seeing a third quarterback go in the first round, it could be potentially to the Rams, but I think receiver would be the best pick to get a Cooper Kupp replacement to pair with Puka Nacua. But Jason, what do you think the Rams do here?
I think they go defense. That's kind of, the Rams have always had a good offense, but again, being in the NFC West, where everybody is kind of bunched up right now, defense, stop the football. So I'm going to go Walter Noland, Mississippi. I think they just need to stick on the defensive side of the football. I think in the later rounds and in free agency, I know they signed Tutu Atwell again. I think that was smart keeping him there, some continuity on that wide receiver. But I think they stuck to the defense.
Chris, what do you think the Rams do here at 26th overall?
This is another tough one. I mean, I do think it's a very Rams pick to go on the defensive side. That's really not kind of, I mean, it's very much than their MO. They're not really a team that's going to go try and go for some flash offensive player. They're going to wait a little bit. So give me Jahad Campbell. I mean, just going to linebacker, simple, safe pick for the Rams.
Surprised you that high.
Again, like you said, it's a super hard pick, but up next at 27, we got the Ravens, and I think they really need help in the secondary. They need a corner. I'm going to go with Siobhan Revel at ECU, another group of five guys who's got phenomenal size and speed that are just phenomenal tools that you're going to need at the NFL level. Yes, he's from a group of five school, but if he didn't get hurt this year, the guy arguably would have been the first corner off the board, not including Travis Hunter. I do think he could have gone before Will Johnson. Saying that as a Michigan fan, Revel, phenomenally talented player. Baltimore's got 4 cornerbacks leading in free agency: Tre'Davious White, Brandon Stevens, Trayvon Mullen, and Christian Matthews. So they're going to need a retool in that secondary, and I think Siobhan Revel would be a phenomenal player for the Baltimore Ravens. Chris, what do you have the Ravens doing here?
Hey, I think they're going to go defense as well, because that's kind of the name of the game for the Ravens. And I do think they need to address the secondary, but I think that knowing the way that the Ravens are and some of the themes behind their defensive players, the themes behind many AFC North defensive players, this is where I finally have James Pierce Jr. coming off the board. I don't necessarily think it is the biggest team need, but I think that they would see his talent and be willing to look past anything else. So give me James Pierce Jr.
Jason, what do you have the Ravens doing here as we're starting to wrap up this mock draft?
Same as you, Siobhan Revel, ECU cornerback. I think they definitely need help on the defensive side of the football. Look, the Baltimore Ravens with Ed Reed and Ray Lewis, I mean, they were known for being feared on defense, and nobody in the league is afraid of them anymore. They have to do something on that defensive side of the football to get Lamar Jackson over that hump, because if he does not get into a Super Bowl here soon, this is going to be just a stain on his career. And I think a lot of it has to do on the defensive side of the football, because they can put up points. You added Derrick Henry last year. You got to do something. So, and just teams are not afraid of their defense anymore. And that's not Ravens football.
And Up next at 28, we got the Detroit Lions. Terrible, terrible end of their season. They were penciled in as the NFC champions, and that defense just got so banged up. They had so many guys on IR. So, again, pretty similar pick as last mock draft. I think they got to get help on that defensive line. And for me, I have a lot of the best edge rushers gone. And this was a tricky one for me. I think they're going defensive tackle, but I don't know which defensive tackle they should go with. I'm was between Derek Harmon and Walter Nolan out of Ole Miss. I think Harmon is going to be able to come in and be more productive as a pass rusher immediately, but Walter Nolan just has so many physical tools. His potential is phenomenal. And for that reason, I have them going Walter Nolan because he's not going to be in a place where he's going to have to play a whole lot. He can afford to get some reps and play behind a phenomenal defensive tackle in Aleem McNeil and learn for a bit and develop into a super talented player. And I mean, yeah, I don't think you can go wrong with a defensive line pick here. But Chris, what do you have the Lions doing here?
I mean, I'm one pick later than you are with him. I have Siobhan Ravel. I mean, he's a taller cornerback, and the secondary was another big issue that they had. I mean, all of it. Line and secondary, but Jaden Daniels absolutely sliced and diced the Lions, and that's one of the big reasons that they lost and they looked the way that they did. Banged up defense, sad end of the year. Give me Revel. I think it's a good idea just to go with the secondary piece.
And Jason, what do you think the Lions do here at 28?
Definitely defense. They couldn't have enough. I mean, unfortunately, it was just a revolving door on defense of them last year. I think they had 19 defensive players on IR, which is ridiculous. So for them to do as well as they did, you scored 40 points, but the other team scored 42. So, I mean, they definitely need to do something on defense. I got them going Shamar Stewart out of Texas A&M. So I think they just need to add as many defensive pieces as they can. So this way, if then one man goes down, you got the next man to step in. They don't have to worry about the offense. Maybe tweak the offensive line just a little bit, but you got the two-headed monster at running game. You already have, your stud wide receivers. You got a stud tight end. So the only other thing I would think of is maybe in the later rounds, you pick Jared Goff's next in line. So I could see a Jackson Dart going to Detroit or somebody like that in one of the later rounds, picking up someone to back up Goff.
Up next, we got the Washington Commanders. Again, this was the most surprising team for me to go from picking second overall to playing in the NFC Championship the next season is just phenomenal, and it speaks volumes to what Dan Quinn and Jaden Daniels were able to do, and Adam Peters to go in and change a culture that has been historically toxic. So, but they still need help in the secondary. Mike Sanders still great rookie corner. He's going to be a big piece for them for years to come. But I got them going Malachi Starks. He's dropped to the fourth to last pick in the first round purely because of the positional value of safeties. Much like running back, it's not necessarily highly valued in today's league. And Starks is a super talented player. He's good in coverage. He's got great instincts. He's a good tackler. And I really think Washington just pick a secondary player and you're good. Chris, what do you have the Commanders doing here at 29th?
I was pretty close. I'm also going to go with a secondary player simply because that's one of their bigger team needs. I mean, I was between that. I was almost debating an offensive guard too, with how much Jaden Daniels got banged up this year. I don't think that would have been a bad idea, but I think they're going to wait on that a little bit. Give me Benjamin Morrison out of Notre Dame. He helped bring that team to a national title, and it might be a little bit of a reach, but I think they're going to go corner over safety simply as the aforementioned positional value.
And Jason, what do you think that your divisional rival, the Washington Commanders, will do in the first round?
Man, hopefully nothing very good because I'm tired of seeing other teams skyrocket above the New York Giants. But, man, you talk about a complete 360 as an organization. I cannot say anything bad about the Commanders because they were a dumpster fire. They were a toxic organization, and then to turn around and do what they did this year is essentially miraculous. I mean, what hitting home runs on their picks. So I think they go Also, I'm going to go with Benjamin Morrison too, cornerback. I think they do need defensive help on the football. They're going to get free agents. I think this is going to be a huge free agent destination. A lot of people want to come play for the Commanders and play for that organization, which speaks volumes on how much they've turned that around. But I think they draft defensive heavy this year. So yeah, Benjamin Morrison, cornerback, Notre Dame.
And up at 30, we got the Buffalo Bills, who still cannot get over the hump that are the Kansas City Chiefs. Lose to them yet again at Arrowhead. Just can't get it done in the postseason. Again, another tricky pick for me. I'm between defensive line or get Josh Allen a weapon, and in this case, I got them going Luther Burden III out of Missouri. You need somebody for Josh Allen to throw the ball to. The Amari Cooper pickup hasn't really panned out like I was hoping it would for Buffalo. So I think you get a young guy in there to pair with Khalil Shakir, I think is a very talented wide receiver as well, and just build up that offense a little bit and look at defensive line in the second round where there's still going to be a lot of value. Again, defensive line, phenomenal class to need help at that spot. But Chris, what do you think the Bills here do at 30?
I have them going Luther Burton as well. You basically took the words out of my mouth. I mean, it's a major reason why they've lost. Not a lot of weapons. Keon Coleman was not what we thought he would be. Shakir is a good receiver, but he's nowhere near elite. And Amari Cooper, the experiment did not work. So, yeah, give me Luther Burton, 100% a slot receiver.
Jason, what do you think the Bills do here?
I think they trade that pick and go out and get DK Metcalf. But who knows? I think the Bills definitely need some help at wide receiver. I don't really see the game changer in this draft. I don't think they're going to move up enough to be able to get. I think Burton's going to be gone. McMillan's going to be gone. Golden's going to be gone. So I think they go on the defensive side of the football. Defensive side of the football. I still have Nick Scrouton, Texas A&M defensive line on my board. So I think they go defense. They're going to be able to pick up some offensive players either deep in the draft, or don't be surprised to see Buffalo heavily trading and heavily making moves to get some of those wide receiver free agents that are out there, because they definitely need to get Josh Allen some weapons, because Josh Allen throwing to Josh Allen, running with Josh Allen just does not get you over the hump.
And next up are the second to last pick. It's the Kansas City Chiefs. I think you got to get Patrick Mahomes some protection. The Eagles absolutely abused that offensive line. I think it was, 7 sacks in the Super Bowl. You got to get the guy some protection. At this point, it's between Gray Zabel and Cameron Williams out of Texas. I'm going to go Cameron Williams. Yes, he is not necessarily experienced, but he has some phenomenal physical tools. He's got great size and length. And I think Kansas City is a really good system that can develop a player who's less experienced like a Cameron Williams. But again, you go offensive lineman and you can't really mess it up because Patrick Mahomes needs protection. But Jason, what do you have the Chiefs doing here?
This is interesting because the Chiefs need some help at running back. Isaiah Pacheco, I don't think, was the answer at running back. So I would not be surprised to maybe see them take a Travion Henderson or a Morian Hampton with that later pick, try to kind of steal an offensive weapon in this draft. I would not be surprised to see them take a Mason Taylor, tight end. You got Travis Kelce's kind of next in line. Travis is going to play next year, but is he going to be Travis Kelce of old, or is he going to be Mr. Swift and kind of fading away into oblivion? But I could see them taking Zabel, Greg Zabel out of was a North Dakota State center. I think they definitely need to get Patrick Mahomes some help. He lives and breathes. He is the heartbeat of that team. If he is pressured, if he is hurt, that team goes nowhere. So give me Zabel.
And Chris, what do you have the Chiefs doing here? Are you going to continue the trend of offensive linemen, or do you think they move in a different direction?
I'm actually not, even though I think that's what they should kind of do. But I think they're going to go grab a tight end because they need a replacement for Travis Kelce. He's got a year or so left, I think, of at least somewhat of the Travis Kelce we know and love. And they're going to go for a receiving threat with that tight end, similar to the way Travis Kelce is. So give me Colson Loveland. I mean, I think it makes sense. Receiving threat tight end, and I don't see him not going in the first.
No, he's he's too talented to drop out. And if he does drop to the second, I really think a team would move up to 33rd overall to take a player of his caliber. But last pick of the mock draft, we got Super Bowl champion Philadelphia Eagles, and I got them going defense here. I think they're going to go for an edge rusher, and best edge rusher available for me. And dear Lord, I do not know how to say his last name. Please forgive me. I forgot to look up how to pronounce it. It's a Donovan out of Boston College. He had 16 and a half sacks this past season. That is some insane production at a Power 4 conference. Yes, the ACC wasn't necessarily the strongest this year, but still 16 and a half sacks in one singular season is absolutely insane. He is so passionate too. The guy has just got a phenomenal motor. I mean, look, I love this pick for Philadelphia, and I also hate it as somebody who doesn't necessarily like the Eagles, but they just continue to pump out these phenomenal defensive draft picks, and I think that he would be the next in a long line of Howie Roseman snipes in the first round. So, yeah. Chris, what do you got the Eagles doing to wrap up this mock draft 2.0?
I got him going Gray's able. I mean, he can play anywhere on the offensive line. That's a big attribute, mainly because you got guys like Lane Johnson, Jordan Mailata that are getting up there in age. You got Landon Dickerson, who's had some issues with injuries, and you got Mekhi Becton, who's a free agent. So I think it would just make sense. You can platoon him anywhere in if there's retirement, if there's injuries, something along that line. Continue to protect Jalen Hurts and continue to let Saquon run all over the NFL.
And Jason, last pick for this panel, last pick for this mock draft. What do you have the Super Bowl champions doing at the end of this first round?
I got the surprise pick. I mean, they're pretty stout on defense. I think they're going to help and get some more help this draft. But I think they go running back. I think they go Omarion Hampton. Look, they gave Saquon Barkley a lot of money. I think Kenneth Gainwell is not going to be there. I think he's going to go test free agency. I don't think he's coming back to the Eagles. So you gave Saquon a lot of money. You're going to need a really good backup two-headed monster, because as we've seen in the NFL right now, the two-headed monster running back works. Detroit, Tampa Bay. So get yourself either the second best running back. So Omarion Hampton, North Carolina, I think you put him with Saquon Barkley. Now you talk about a 1-2 punch coming out of that backfield. Now you could put somebody in instead of Saquon to do those stupid tush pushes, so you don't have to worry about getting Saquon injured. So you need somebody with Gainwell probably being gone. They need that backup.
And that'll do it for Mock Draft 2.0. Thanks, everybody, for watching. Thank you, Sean. Thank you, Cody. Appreciate y'all for sticking around. This was another longer show and really liking it. Give it another couple weeks. We'll have Mock Draft 3.0. Want to see how free agency plays out, of course. And we're going to start having pro days as well. So that can change some rankings too. Thanks all for watching. We'll see you next week. And